Hi and welcome to High on Coding. I'm your host Mohammad Azam. In the last video, I showed you how you can use Rake, which is R-A-K-E, to run different kind of tasks. Now those tasks can also execute shell scripts, which will allow you to interact with the .NET framework, which can allow you to execute bash files and to execute executable files, of course. And so in this particular screencast, I will show you that how you can use Rake to build your application to run the unit test, and also, this is really cool, build the documentation for one of the libraries. Okay, so let's get started over here. Now I already have this particular Rake file. It's called rakefile.rb, and you can see I have set up different paths. Now most of these paths are related to my project. So if I go bang, I will go to the tools folder, okay? And my solution is right over here. My domain test path is over here, repository test path. So most of these paths are related to my project, okay? And these paths are figured out from the build script folder, which is right over here in the right hand cell on the console. If I go bang, I will reach eStudy folder, from where I can iterate, or I can access different folders. Okay, so right now the default will execute all tasks. Now all will execute compile, test domain, and test repositories. And if you check out how these tasks are, so the first thing is a .NET path. So first we need to compile the application. So you can use msbuild.exe and give it the solution, and it will compile your solution. This is really cool, right? So we already have the .NET path, which should be same in all the computers. So we have it over here, which is the default installation directory. And it will say, okay, building the eStudy solution. Okay, so this will build your solution. After you run or build the solution and succeeded, the test domain is fired, which will execute by taking the end unit path. And what I have done is I have placed my end unit folder into the tools. Okay, so end unit DLL and unit executable, that is inside the tool folder, which is also part of my project or the solution basically. All right, so this is going to use end unit console.exe and then the name of the DLL, which in this case is estudy.domain.test.dll. The same thing is done for the repositories. Okay, so I can execute the repositories over here. So let's go ahead and say that if I just want to compile my application, so I'm just going to say rake compile, okay, and see what happens. It goes over there, it runs this one, which is msbuild.exe, and passing the solution name, and it basically builds my application. Build succeeded. Isn't that cool? Okay, now what I'm going to do is run just rake. So what it will do is trigger the default task, which is right over here. Default task will trigger all tasks, and all tasks will trigger all these tasks, which is all the 3 tasks. Okay, so let's go ahead and say rake, and so now it's building the application. It's succeeded. It's now trying to run the unit test, and you can actually see it's it already ran, I think, the domain unit test. Now it's running the repository unit test, and you can see it's passed. So test ran 13 and test ran for the domain is 14. One other cool thing that we can do is to add the documentation. So let's add the task over here. I'm just going to say task build documentation. Now you can use any tool that you like. I'm using ndoc3, but you can use any tool that you like for documentation. And I am going to say over here that the path, so I need to specify the path of my tool, which is ndoc3, and here is the path. Okay, so I'm just going to go over here and say, okay, here we go, that's the path. But what is the name of the file? So the file name is ndoc3 console.exe, and now I have to provide the path to my assembly, which contains the DLL. Okay, so that is my domain assembly path. I'm going to just push it over here, and then the name, which is estudy.domain.model.dll. Okay. The last thing I need to do is to add this into my all the tasks, and I can do like this. All right. Also, you have to make sure that your project is creating the configuration or the XML file for the documentation, and you can just right click on the project and go to build, and then you can see the last option I think is over there. It's not actually the project. Let me actually go and see. So it's build, yes, XML documentation file. So you have to just check it up, and whatever name you give. It's a good idea to name it exactly the same as the DLL, so that the NDoc application will have a easier time to find it. So we have ndoc3 console.exe is going to execute the domain assembly path, and then estudy.domain.model. I have saved it. Let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to say Rake. So it's building the application. Build is succeeded. Now the next task is to test the domain. I think that is already done. Here we go. Now it's testing the repositories, which is actually accessing the database. That's why it's taking some time. That is done. Now we move to the building the documentation, and you can actually see it's running that task, generating HTML pages, and basically building the help and HTML file. Okay, so let's make it finish the work. It's finished. Now let's go ahead to the build script folder. You will see that there's a doc folder over here. Go inside the doc, and here's your documentation, and you can actually see that all the documentation. Okay, my computer seems to be stuck or something. Oops. Anyway, here we go. So this is all the documentation has been created, as you can see. Okay, login controller and all these things are created. If you go to your model, you'll see the role class and all the other things are created. So that's pretty much it. I am sure that you are going to use Rake instead of Nant, instead of MSBuild. As you can see, this is extremely simple. I mean, this is not even 20 30 lines of code, right? And if you were doing the same task in Nant or MSBuild, you have to deal with XML configuration, and it's just a whole mess. All right, that's pretty much it. I hope you like the screencast. One last note is High on Coding donation. High on Coding is always looking for donation. Just keep in mind that each video that is uploaded is in HD quality, which takes about 30 to 60 minutes, plus the bandwidth usage, hosting cost, hosting it on the High on Coding website, of course. And you know, your donations will be used to basically improve our videos, to get better equipment, and to get more authors or more contributors. All right, so that's pretty much it. I hope you like the screencast, and I hope you visit High on Coding, bookmark it, subscribe it right over here. Podcast RSS is right over here. And if you have any comments, suggestions, rants, anything, send me an email at azamsharp@gmail.com. Thank you very much.